Catch you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k. America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles, all dealing with the ongoing pension crisis we're experiencing here in America and what is to come. And so we're only 4 days into the new year, and already we have news about countries deciding to remove themselves or rethink the dollar, or aka dump the dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell from today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people.
All right, we are live for a little RTD midday news updates. And so wanted to cover some mainstream stories right now, go through the titles, give you a little bit what's inside, and give you the alternative perspective as to what's being told to us via the mainstream news. So hope everyone is having a good or a decent afternoon thus far. And so I'm trying to enjoy this nice cold Michigan winter. Spring hasn't really hit here yet, but we will hang off a little bit and see what's going on. Hope everyone's doing well, as I mentioned. So we'll just check in via the chat real quick. We got Lamart Glenn says, anyone know where I can find a deep freezer to stock up on food? Funny colors. We got Benjamin. We got Kwame. We got low blood pressure, Spirit. We got Excalibur, David, Howard, Pabar, Michael. Appreciate everybody taking time to join this discussion. As always, if there's any other news stories that you have come across today within the last couple of hours, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll try to bring it up so everyone can be familiarized with what's going on. And so with that being the case, let's dive right into it. And before I do, I want to put out there, I noticed over the last 2 weeks now, YouTube has something with their algorithms to where all the interviews that's done via live stream format, it takes 5-6 hours, give or take, for them to go through it to make sure it's safe to monetize. Therefore, it's not visible until they approve it. So like the interview I did this morning, unless you actually watched it or know that it was taking place, it's not in my video feed. So as a way of trying to get the word out there for those that might be interested in doing so, if you want to share these videos so more people can find out what's going on, because as of now, YouTube might eventually just say, hey, we don't want to post this, so we're not going to let it, no one ever find out about it. So that's why I encourage you guys to connect with me on these platforms down here, where I also post those same videos. So if you're subscribed to them, you'll be notified as well. So let's dive right into it. We got Mundo, I can't pronounce that, from South Africa. How's things in South Africa, man? I've heard a couple different stories about life down there. We got Kieran from Detroit, fellow Detroiter in the building. Appreciate you for tuning in. And so I'm curious to find out. It says, hi from the UK. I hear that British pound is not doing too well against the dollar and everything else. So yeah, everybody's having some issues in their part of the world, I'm sure. Feel free to let us know what's happening in the chat, and I'm going to dive right into these articles here. And so the very first one, let me pull it up here. The leading story for today. This is from Crane's New York Business as of a couple hours ago. And just the title alone caught my attention because it's one of the things where I realized that because of the official lockdown and attempts to slow the spread, as we're being told, that was ultimately the pricking of the global monetary debt-based bubble that we're witnessing now. And so not only has all government stepped in to be the backstop for defaults as well as bankruptcies and you name it, we're only 30 days into what has yet to be fully exposed for what it actually is the fact that this system has already crumbled. And so are you surprised when you see the amount of bankruptcies and defaults that's coming, as well as the amount of foreclosures and you name it, and the true damage has not even been fully assessed just yet? It won't be until next month officially, but then the end of Q2 where we really get a chance to see how bad of an environment we're currently in. And so here's something I want to share with you guys, and I'll share it via the link as well in the chat. But it says a wave of defaults is coming for retail and hotels, a developer says. And so I was thumbing through this article here, and this is just some information out of the New York-based area. And so here's something here. It says, while lenders have been using forbearance programs to allow tenants to delay rent payments, the lack of money flowing, quote, will quickly become credit problems as the value of underlying assets falls and landlords can't service their debt. And so right then and there, lets you know the trickle-down effect that this current pricking of the debt-based monetary system bubble will actually have, that type of impact it will have, because it just doesn't stop with, the defaults of the initial debt that was taken out for these rental properties, but then you have all the other people not employed that won't be able to survive, never enough pay them landlords, and then all the credit-based issues that's tied into that. And the fact that all those loans are packaged up as somebody else's asset that was dealt out and sitting in someone's retirement portfolio, or sitting in someone's one of them REITs that people are locked into right now. So, there's so many issues in between this initial default all the way to the time something collapses. And now it's just going to be a matter of, will the government come in and attempt to throw currency at these issues as well? So this is just New York, and I've already heard about the I think it was Reggie Middleton mentioned how real estate prices have dropped significantly within the last month, well before this current health scare situation. So I imagine every major metropolitan area, similar to New York, is experiencing the same types of difficulties. And so it's one of the things where, can you be surprised really? And there's no official number that's being thrown out to where we can really grab a hold of how severe the current crumbling of the housing market will actually be. And that's just one part of it. And so check in via chat. I'll put this link here in the description if anybody wants to find out more. It says, let me see. It says, buy gold and silver to make transactions outside of the blockchain. Yeah, at this point, I think with the amount, especially the guest I had earlier, Robert Wenzel, basically mentioned that right now it would be the time to take whatever disposable income you have or whatever to get something that can't be easily printed or created out of nowhere. And so that will come in a variety of forms according to, your knowledge base on the alternatives that are out there. And so primarily here, gold and silver is the backbone of what we talk about here. But there's a lot of other people who have other ways of diversifying into things that will benefit well from the amount of liquidity that's about to be created. So Illinois bankruptcy. So I haven't dived into that much. I know that Mitch McConnell, in one of the interviews I'm talking about, is talking about letting certain states just file for bankruptcy. And of course, there's going to be a domino effect of that as well. So nothing that's thrown out there as a suggestion from the political realm will actually comfort or solve anything. It's just going to only make things worse. And that's when I think people will realize that pretty soon, that no type of information advice that comes from those that are so-called leaders actually are benefiting the people as opposed to themselves first. Because everybody right now will tell you whatever it takes to get another term at whatever position they're running for. So right now is not a great time to be in the political realm, my personal opinion, because if you're truthful, you're going to cause pain. But if you lie, you're going to try to kick the can down the road, which causes more pain. So yeah, it's a tough situation to be in. Adam says you should try and chat with Bix Ware. I think your viewers would like him. Yeah, I do follow Bix. I think I reached out to him a while ago. Never heard back, so I'll probably reach out to him again. And so, my only thing with that is that he has the good guy, bad guy scenario of him for several years talking about the good guys were winning, and I never really figured out who the good guys were, because I, like always, anybody who opposes the established order typically never was around long enough to really push their agenda to where they end up becoming part of the establishment themselves. So never could quite pinpoint who those good guys were. So that's why I never really bothered to pursue that. But yet, at this point, I think it'll definitely help to have some interaction with them. So I will definitely reach out again. And so let me quit ranting and get some more of the stories and go from there. So as a part of these delinquencies, as well as bankruptcies and all those words that's coming, here's something I found very interesting, and I happen to very fortunate to have gotten all my money back from Airbnb. And so it says Airbnb hosts say they're getting nothing or comically small amounts from a $250 million relief fund. Call it a publicity stunt. And so this article here is interesting, that you have Airbnb, who was looking to go public when around the same time frame, change of plans because of this situation. They're hemorrhaging billions upon billions of dollars. Their total market cap is almost cut in half from its all-time high, and they're now taking out debt now to service some of their higher-end superhost clients. But in this article here, it covers a lot of stories of people who have utilized the system very well, and all of a sudden now, because of the amount of refunds that have had to go back out, the people who have properties listed are now suffering, and they're basically screaming that Airbnb is not compensating them in an equal proportion to what they should be able to receive via the refunds. And so, yeah, people are here who have taken advantage of the opportunity of being a property owners. And so people out here have 30 properties listed, 14 properties listed. And so here's one story here. It says, a $106 check to cover $30,500 in lost revenue. So this individual here is talking about how they got a check in the mail for $106 when typically, if things were all normal, they'll be getting $30,000 instead. So they're just looking for some clarity with Airbnb. And they're also kind of seems like they're hinting at wanting to be bailed out as well, or something like that, to where I'm thinking like, that's just the side effects of a system going wrong where, unless you had your backup plan or had your insurance plans or your reserves for your own personal business, I don't really think you should be pointing the blame at Airbnb or the government to try to cover your losses. But yet, if I was in that position, I can understand how I would try to pitch a fit to try to get as much as I could as well. So, but a lot of good stories in there. And of course, everybody who's not experiencing, who's not taking a full loss, the overall theme or tone is that they're not really hurting, assuming all those properties were bought and paid for rentals that's not heavily leveraged with them as far as them owing debt on them. So it didn't seem like nobody was going to lose any property in this deal. But just I thought it was interesting, and so I'll share that. And so here's another interesting article here that I think is telling of what is coming. And so here we have Leon Cooperman says this current crisis will change capitalism forever, and taxes have to go up. And so I saw the point about taxes. I'm thinking like that's one thing we haven't really talked much about because everybody's looking to get bailed out or get stimulated just to get through a month, basically. That's what this stimulus will probably pan out to do. And so there's going to be more coming along the way. But yet, what about come tax time? How will this stimulus, which will eventually turn into an income source, be taxed? And according to this gentleman here, he's basically saying that based upon the way things are unfolding now, taxes have to go up. It's just a matter of when. And so he shares some insights into it, and I'll just share a quick quote that I thought was interesting. He says, quote, "When the government is called upon to protect you on the downside, they have every right to regulate you on the upside." He says, so capitalism has changed. So basically, when I read that, it's whatever government becomes your support force or your support line, when everything turns around or gets better, they have every right to now say or dictate to you what they want. And that's going to be one of the side effects of the government looking to provide stimulus or relief or aid or universal income or allowance or whatever to the people, is that to continue to receive that, you're going to have to then trade in something on your end, which a lot of people don't realize that there's nothing given where there's not something expected in return. And I think that we're going to find out real soon what the government expects from us in the form of them mandating us or encouraging us or telling us how to further live our lives in this current time frame. And I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to turn off that government spigot and say, no, thank you, I don't want no more, take it back, I'll take my freedom or I'll take whatever instead, but I don't want no more handouts. And that's when I think that fine line will come where people will have to make a choice. Do you bite the hand that feeds you if you're not directly contributing and adding value for yourself and pursuing the more entrepreneurial route, which might be a struggle at first, but it'll be better than getting stimulated as well as having to forfeit your rights directly to the government. So let me check in with the chat real quick and see what is going on over here. And I'll share this article as well so people can see what I was reading from. And if you're interested, you can feel free to read more for yourself. And so here in the chat, it says, seeing that we are printing to infinity, what taxes will pay off anything? What taxes will pay off anything? Adam, I think it's more so not to pay off anything. It's so that the issuers of our currency, however it's coming out, digital, paper, whatever they do in the short term, it's to establish and to maintain the idea that no matter how much you earn or how much you receive, you still owe somebody something, because it's just the idea that the Federal Reserve notes that we have now are not technically ours. They belong to the Federal Reserve, issued to the United States Treasury, utilized for our national currency. So technically, we don't own what we call our own now, unless you hold it. And so that was one of the benefits of being under a bimetallic monetary system. Before that, the concept of a redeemable or backed note was that you could always go down and get what was yours, which was something tangible, hard, and round that couldn't be printed. It had to be mined. And so now we're away from that. So at this point, they want to make sure that you don't forget who your master is. Basically, you're going to give them something. You're not just going to sit around and sit on it and prosper and allow your accounts to grow without them getting their fair share, as they would like to always use that word. All right, so Jennifer says, push your mic down a little. Okay, I'll push it down a little. Okay, I'll push it down and back it up some. All right, so let me keep moving right along. I don't want to keep ranting. Got a couple more articles here, and then we will dial back and get ready for a live stream later on this evening. So here's another thing here that's very interesting. It says, when 8 trillion, with a T, capital T at that, in global fiscal stimulus still isn't enough. Isn't that interesting? So thus far, 30 days into the great meltdown, and 8 trillion in fiscal stimulus from all governments, and that's what we're being told, is out and about, making its way through the pipes of our monetary system, and it's still not enough. And the reason I start off by saying this is because we have yet to truly see the total nominal damage amount that will be thrown out there, as far as all the wealth that's been transferred and siphoned out and all that stuff like that, in the midst of a lockdown. So I can understand how there are certain people that's pushing to reopen because they would like to attempt to try to get back to some form of normalcy, not really taking in the fact that the norm is gone and now we're entering into something new. Because even if they were to get people back out into the streets, going in some direction early in the morning to work somewhere, more than likely the supply chain of things have already broken down to where you might get there to work and find out that you're short on some parts that didn't come in because China didn't open up, or wherever your company sources their materials from is not there. So you may not be able to produce anything. Therefore, you're going to be sent home. And then when it comes to the fact that in this country, everything, our driving industry happen to be more paper pusher, computerized type of things than actual manufacturing. So there's not many jobs that will actually reopen at the end of the day, because I think, as I mentioned before, there's going to be a shift towards automating things and lessening the need for actual human labor in the workforce. So I think we're going to open up into a whole new economy when this thing does reopen. Even if they try to do it by the end of this month, which I don't see that working. But here's a little picture here of all the total amounts of stimulus thus far that governments have issued to try to just re-inflate the bubble that's already been pricked, and now it's about to burst. So here it says, surging stimulus. Governments worldwide pledge more than $8 trillion in fiscal support. So here in the U.S., with the reserve currency, we're leading the way, which is to be expected. And then you have this Asian area / Russian area where they're less than around 100 billion to 500 billion. And so once again, this is all done to paper over the known problems, not to factor in the oil situations are going to get worse and a lot of other things that's not even coming to mind right now. So these numbers here are small in comparison to what they will attempt to do to try to paper over this current problem. So I will share this in the chat if anybody is interested in reading more for yourself. And so it says your audio is clipping, level is too high. All righty. So we got another issue here with the audio. So what I would do is just dial back off of that. So it should be a little bit better now. Okay.
So do you think there will be a bail-ins with even them rolling out a digital dollar? Lamar, great question there. Will there be bail-ins? Bail-ins, according to the way it was established in the Dodd-Frank Act after the last great financial problem, it was meant to be a last ditch effort in worst case of worst case. So as of now, we haven't reached that worst case for the banking sector just yet. So I'm hearing a lot of people saying that at the end of this month, leading into next month, the banks will come out with their whatever reports they come out with and share their total losses. And of course, all this is about the too big to fail banks. So that's what is the most important with our economy itself is driven by the activity done by the too big to fail banks. And so they've already thrown out some figures of what they've lost. But once they fully tally up what they've lost, then I can see the government needing to step in. And Jerome Powell's made it clear that they're going to provide more windows of opportunity for them to get whatever they need. And so at the very end of all that, if none of that worked, then they have it in writing where they can then close all depositor savings account or freeze them, lock you in, and then use that to help recapitalize themselves and like a emergency-based measure. So I think it's still baked into the cake. It's still one of their cards. It's still one of the tools they can use, and eventually, not sure what time frame it will be used, but I can see it still being in the game plan. Because as I mentioned before, once it's in the bank's possession, it doesn't belong to you. You've lent it to the banking sector, even though they're not giving you interest on it anymore. But so basically, whatever you have in the bank, in the worst case scenarios, you should kind of condition your mind that perhaps you might not actually end up being able to get at it fully, especially if more people start to try to go down to withdraw. At some point, they're going to recognize people catching on, and they're going to start putting limitations even more so. So that's just my personal opinion. Mic too quiet now. All right, man. Let me try to crank this up just a little bit. Okay, so won't be much longer rather. Volume mic. I can't win if I try. So the volume should be good as of now. Let me know by a thumbs up in the chat, and we keep it moving. So D says it's the same for credit unions. Credit unions, I want to say yes for sure, because I doubt the FDIC would allow only those registered with the FDIC to take losses, and not the what insurance company is it for credit unions? The NC something or National Credit Union, NCUA, National Credit Union Alliance, or something like that. So they're all in the same window. In order to use Federal Reserve notes in general, you got to be involved with those clubs. So they all fall in the same boat there. All right, so it says pump up the volume. It's good. Your volume is cool. Okay, good deal. Okay, so let me keep moving. As always, I kind of get tied up and get to ranting. So for more information, feel free to read those stories for yourself. And so here's another article that ties right into what's going on. And so here's from Bloomberg. It says Fitch, one of the credit agencies, warns of credit risk if development banks pause repayment. So if you look, here's some graphs here. You look at all these other nations, the emerging economies, and just, especially Africa itself, heavily indebted, but yet no way of ever servicing a debt in the first place, apart from just borrowing to pay the interest, just like we're doing here in the U.S. But now they're talking about in a way to help slow down the erosion of our economy, allowing whether they should allow certain nations to pause their debt payments or not. And it says here, Fitch Ratings warned that multilateral development banks could see their credit ratings suffer if they let the poorest nations suspend sovereign debt payments. So once again, it's one of those questions: is if they can't make payments when times were really good, why and how would they be able to make payments when things come to a complete halt? Which means they can't. So that means there's going to be some reneging on promises and the ability for nations to not repay. But yet what's going to happen is, and I didn't put the article here, but the IMF will come back in and say, here, we'll give you another $50 billion loan just to pay the interest and pay some of the principal of the old loan. So this is a time where you take impoverished nations and you enslave them further, because all these countries here are the areas where natural resources are abundant, especially the continent of Africa. Right? So right now, China, Russia, they all have heavy presence in Africa because that will be the bedrock of development moving forward because it's untapped dirt. And so even what has been tapped, there's so much wealth in the ground in Africa that it is a place where, yeah, the goal is to enslave those nations so that as a government, you have to now turn over your mines, your mountains, your oil, because we've given you more debt that you can ever repay. So what better way to entrap and enslave Africa further than to extend their debt limits to the point where in order to pay it back, you basically have to sell your country. And that's what's going to happen in the continent of Africa, as well as a lot of South American countries. So I'll share this if you guys want to find out more for yourself. All right, so let me touch on the last subject matter for today. And this happens to be about what's happening out with China. And so it looks like China, despite the fact that everything originated there, how, let you figure it out for yourself. But it says China's digital currency to be given a test drive by U.S. companies. And so we have not all, but a good portion of the companies that signed up to be a part of, I believe, the Libra program, Facebook's program, now get first dibs on rolling out some things in China. And so the digital yuan is being used in a test form now in certain regions. And so McDonald's, Starbucks, Subway chains were named amongst the People's Bank of China list of firms that will test the national digital currency in the near future. And so it talks about the fact it's not a digital currency, it's not a cryptocurrency, it's a centralized currency. It's basically a rebranding of the digital yuan that's already been used, but yet now the PBOC will have more of a say-so as to who can operate utilizing that particular currency that they have complete control over. And so it's just more of some developments behind the scenes of what was already a part of the plan. But the goal is now to have a reason to throw this out there because it'll be easier to get payments to those that are in need of support, stimulus-wise, if you can just have them download the app and automatically have them log in, and it'll just be instantly there for them to use to go shopping with. And ultimately the goal is, because they can now see what you're buying, exactly where you bought it and at what time you bought it, they can just further play along to controlling your options of privacy or lack thereof, and right on down the line. So here's another article that was very interesting I'll share. And so this is what's happening in the news today. The air is leaving the bubble at a more increasing rate, while at the same time central banks are trying their best to re-inflate the bubble or to keep it from completely bursting. Because, if you were to look at think about actual physical bubble, and the bubble is constantly being blown, and it's full of just hot air. It's just air. There's nothing solid inside that balloon or bubble, but just air, which is all the fictitious numbers and digits and papers that's being thrown out there, which only the people who are closest to the water spigot, in a sense of liquidity, it actually benefits from, while the rest of the world has to work for and to further advance those that are closer to the spigot. But we're coming to an end now, so they're trying their best to scramble to prop this thing up to position themselves so that when they issue that digital whatever globally, that they can reinflate it and then still be close to controlling things and further monitoring and surveillance and tracking and doing every type of thing that they would like to do for as long as they can. And so let me check in via chat real quick, and then we're going to call it in for this afternoon. It says, keep it locked down. The bankers made a killing in the stock market with more fear campaign equal more Fed stimulus, higher stock prices sold off and waiting for the next stimulus. Yeah, it says 25 is about the cheapest price for Silver Eagles right now, if you can get it. And so, yeah, I'm also got a couple of things I'm working on to be able to provide RTD viewers some metal directly outside of the RTD coin and whatnot as well. So that is something I'm working on now. What else we got here? It says you're good now. Okay, so I froze up for a second. And so that is pretty much it. No thoughts, no questions out there. It says, is the digital yuan going to kill off the dollar? Michael, great question. Will it kill off the dollar? Not right away, I don't think. I think as of right now, because of the world's dependency on solving their own debt-based issues denominated in dollars, the Federal Reserve note can probably get a little bit of life out of this. But I think everything is, digital yuan, digital dollar, that's all the transitionary process that they're setting up to usher us into by the time that the bubble bursts. And it comes, and as Robert Wenzel mentioned, as all the equity markets drop, housing drop, the rebuilding or the re-inflating of all that might be done in the digital world, as far as the digital dollars or whatnot, and everything being priced in whatever that measuring stick might be. I don't think it will be, gold is going to be an equation for the governments, but not for the people again directly. So I'm not sure what will be the measuring stick of value moving forward on an international basis, because it will not be the Federal Reserve note. And I believe everybody in the know, as far as governments, they already have some plan, not just quite sure what it is. So people might say, XRP is going to be set up as a payment processing mechanism. Could be, but once again, I think that same XRP that people are holding on now may not be the same XRP that is down the line, because I don't think the establishment wants anybody to profit, especially speculators that are excited about certain coins or whatnot in the crypto space. So, but other than that, that's what it is. Wanted to check in and see what's going on. I say something about Crypto Rice. Yeah, so me and Crypto Rice going to connect on this weekend. So he wasn't able to get to it today. So I had to change schedule there. So the Emin Group says, France, EU launched digital currency test. Yeah, so that's another thing. So by France offering or announcing that they're working on a central bank digital currency, is that their plan of leaving the euro, or do they see the euro imploding and them going back to their own sovereign currencies or whatnot? Not quite sure. But I think if every nation was to issue their own central bank digital currency, they still would have to have some type of international method of exchanging when it comes to the debt markets, as well as just trade itself. And so I don't think governments will trust each other in this shift unless there's something anchoring a system, which will be gold for sure, and whatever else they decide to get into. So Wolfgang says the future is now. I do agree. It says all G5 are issuing digital currency now. Yeah. And so all that's just been issued now is in the test phase, and it's going to be rolled out as every government looks to provide stimulus or UBA, Universal Basic Allowance. Then they'll end up rolling it out fully to the public in those instruments as well, I think. So anyway, but that's enough for this afternoon. I don't want to rant any further. Let's save some of that for this evening. So with that being the case, if you've enjoyed the back and forth, the quick little news stories, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. And then also make sure you guys connect with me here on these social media platforms, because as I mentioned to start this off, YouTube is doing a good job of making sure that my interviews are not shown in my video feed for 5 or 6 hours as they thumb through them trying to find some ways to demonetize me. So what I want to do ask for your help is, if you've enjoyed like the Lynette Zhang video, once again 2,300 people supposedly watched that, but it was MIA off my platform for 5 or 6 hours. So definitely information people need to see. So I need your help, of course, but take those video links, share them on your social media so more people can find out what's going on. Because once again, if all they're watching is the mainstream news will have you thinking that everything is fine, it's going to be temporary, we're going to get back to the new norm next week, and that's not going to be the case. So yeah, I think it's once you're aware, once you're awake, it's time to help other people wake up as well, and do that with whoever your favorite alternative media person is, of course. So right now is the time to support those that probably are definitely going to be heavily censored moving forward, if not taken down. So anyway, that's all she wrote, because I can rant forever, but I'm not. I'm going to save some for tonight. If you want to support the channel on a monetary base, feel free to become a member of the Patreon page. I'm working on setting up my wall of fame for my supporters, so definitely want to be able to help you guys if you have a small business or if you're a content creator. We're definitely going to try and shine some light on those that are a blessing to this channel. So other than that, be blessed, be safe. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month towards the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k.
America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles